Hi, I'm Don Mooers. Welcome to Montgomery Week in Review. The State Board of Elections has changed the location of some early voting sites in our county. Brian Karem, executive editor of the Sentinel newspaper, is here to tell us why there has been such a sharp reaction by many throughout Montgomery County. Montgomery Housing Partnership has just begun taking reservations for apartments at the Bonifant in Silver Spring. Robert Goldman, the executive director of MHP, is here to tell us about the many benefits for seniors who will live there. The Montgomery County Education Association, MCEA, has a new leader, and he's here with us. Christopher Lloyd will tell us his plans and hopes for the future. There will be a salute to Vietnam veterans at the universities at Shady Grove later this month. Neil Greenberger, on the staff of the County Council, is here to tell us all about it. Brian, welcome back.
Good to see you, Don.
It's always one of our funnest experiences on the show when you're here.
Yeah.
So this early voting site change, we read about that it may be politically driven, but maybe why don't you set the tone for us a little bit about what's happening?
It is politically driven, and the tone is set is that Republicans thought they had a shot at the Democrats, and the Democrats had to take it, and then they met last night and went round and round, and turns out maybe they don't have to take it. So the whole idea is...
Get us to, what are the early voting sites, and why are they important?
Well, the two that were the most, obviously there are plenty, but the two that were the ones that everyone was talking about was Burtonsville and down at Bethesda, and they are very well attended. And it was thought that the excuse was made, of course, there was a budgetary reason why there had to be, some of these eliminated, and by gum, where do the most Democrats go? Oh yeah, well, let's cut those out. So
not just eliminated, they were going to be opening other places in place
in lieu
of them, right.
And so it was a disingenuous argument to begin with, because there was a political component to it, and there was, of course, a political outcome to it. And so the people that sit on the Board of Elections may be Republican, but they're not exactly ignorant. So they knew one way or another that there was a political component to it. So it's disingenuous to say it was for any other reasons other than to stick it to the Democrats.
Well, the state, if I remember correctly in my Maryland state
law,
maybe not, but whoever the governor is in power, that governor has the majority, whatever party the governor is in, has the majority of the Board of Election seats for every county in the state.
I believe you remember correctly.
Do I remember that correctly?
Yes.
So with Governor Hogan, it's 3 Republicans, 2 Democrats, and this, so that whatever they wanted to do to get through. So you think it was politically driven or not?
Come on.
I don't know.
Yeah, of course it was politically driven. I mean, how else could it be seen any other way? The fact that there was a political component to it, even if it wasn't politically driven, you had to know there was a political outcome to it, so it was politically driven. Logic dictates that it was politically driven. You can't argue it any other way. So all hats off to them for trying it, and then last night in a meeting, it was decided, I guess we'll leave them open.
Never mind.
So, yeah, never mind. So big circle back to where we were to begin with, and of course the big question is, Neil, we were talking beforehand, is whether or not Governor Hogan actually had his finger on the button, or whether it was just some of his minions acting as minions and not necessarily doing what he wanted to do. And there's arguments to be made in both. I mean, he's had a physical malady, he's had cancer, he's undergone treatment, so he hasn't exactly been, hands on the button type of guy. Right
I think the whole thing about this really small issue, important to some people, is our state's really having a hard time getting used to two-party politics. The state of Maryland, so Democratic-driven. Matter of fact, where I work, all 9 council members Democrats, the county executive Democrat. Matter of fact, in the more than 40-year history of Montgomery County, there's only been a handful of Republicans ever elected to either the county council or as county executive.
I mean, in the last 40 years since the
in
government
40
was
years,
changed.
40
Jim
years.
Gleason, Howie Dennis, there's not many more than that.
Yeah. That's about it. And with a Republican governor, changes come, whether it's temporary or long-term, we'll never know for a while, but these are things that come with it. When you have one-party rule, you never have to deal with these things. And now there's little political things that it's really hard for people to get used to right now.
Well, and it's, to be honest, there really hasn't been, and I've moderated some of the debates on both sides, Democrats and Republicans, and there hasn't been a whole lot of choice from the Republican side of the aisle that makes any logical sense to anyone. You can only come out in your bow tie and scream the Holocaust didn't happen so many times before people aren't going to vote for you.
But isn't this a little bit different than, I mean, look, I understand your issue and your point, but doesn't this kind of come in with the whole idea that Republicans want to suppress votes?
Well,
because they think that will help
not
them.
Really, I mean,
When you're dealing with voting,
realistically, the two places that they closed down, the ease of access is the issue. Whether or not they actually suppress votes would remain to be seen in the general election, whether or not the voter turnout was the same. Then you could make that argument. But since it's not going to happen, you can't say that votes were suppressed because nothing happened. The bigger issue when you talk about voting is just getting people out to vote in the first place.
You almost wonder, do we need to go to email voting or something? People are
a voting app on your people might do that.
You're right. People are not voting. The turnout rates are terrible.
Well,
and
the
what
last-
does that say about our
Yeah,
democracy?
the last election was I think about 16%.
Yeah,
if we
well, the
looked at
last
that.
election, for example, the Rockville City election, it was 11%. There were some precincts where there were 1 or 2 voters that came out. Countywide, 16, 19%. It's ridiculous.
we got about 45 seconds left.
1 or 2 votes make a difference. This was a gig at Democrats. I don't know that it would have had much of an effect, but if it does anything, if it reminds people to vote, go out and vote. That's what it should do, but we'll wait and see. It doesn't happen.
In this election, the city of Rockville is having election in November.
Huge.
And they, for the first time, are going to have early voting as well. It'll be very interesting to see that very low percentage, a place where I used to work in the city of Rockville, whether more people actually vote or if they just vote early instead of voting on election day. Because if that's the case, I'm not sure the whole process really means anything.
Right. Vote early, vote often, and in Rockville, for the love of heavens, somebody with common sense run for office. Did I say that?
And Brian, while they're out voting, they should also be reading their Sentinel
Picking up the
newspaper, right?
Montgomery County Sentinel, www.thesentinel.com, and of course we're online. 2 newspapers in Prince George's and Montgomery were the only general interest newspapers left in both counties.
And what's of general interest now, thank you, Brian, is Montgomery Housing Partnership.
Well, thank you, Don. Montgomery Housing Partnership just celebrated our 25th anniversary.
Congratulations.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And as we look forward to the next 25 years, we're doing an exciting project called the Bonifant. Just in short about MHP, we are a nonprofit that does not just housing, but we're also take a comprehensive approach. We're empowering the residents that live there with resident services, and we're strengthening neighborhoods around where affordable housing is located. And the exciting thing about the Bonifant, it's going to have 149 senior apartments right in downtown Silver Spring, next to the new Silver Spring Library that opened up this summer, right near the shops and the movie theaters. The metro is down the street. If we get a purple line, it's going to have a stop right at the library. You can't have anything more convenient for seniors right in downtown Silver Spring.
We've, on this show and elsewhere throughout this county, we talk about affordable housing, the issue of both our service providers, teachers and police officers, firefighters not being able to live in Montgomery County, it's too expensive, homelessness, we've got immigrant families coming in, working 2-3 jobs. It sometimes seems hopeless, the issues, but year after year, MHP is there under your leadership, chipping away at the situation.
Yep. Well, I appreciate that. We've developed.
I think he likes you.
Yeah, I appreciate that. It's really been some great leadership of support from the board. You were a past board member, but we've had a number of people that just bring together the effort for MHP, and so we now, as I said, developed over 1,400 homes. We just finished an exciting development in Olney where 114 single-family and townhouse homes, home ownership, 30% were affordable, 30% were the next level, the workforce housing, and 40% market rate. Just finishing up the integration and diversity in that community, the bringing together, it's just wonderful to see.
Now, I know a lot of people have questions, but before we get to that, people can learn more about all the exciting work you're doing on your website, correct?
Yep. Well, our website is www.mhpartners.org. But if people want to learn about the Bonifant, and if you're a senior, you need affordable housing, you need to go to www.thebonifant.com because that is where you can sign up. And we're going to start taking names and a waiting list, and it's going to go fast. We already have over 700 people who have expressed an interest.
Wow.
We haven't quite taken the official list, so if you want to, still time for viewers to kind of check out the website, learn about it, and we have it at all different levels. We have some at the lowest incomes at 30% of median. We have some at 60% of median. We have some over that, market rate. So we really want to serve a broad population. We want this to be a vibrant part of downtown Silver Spring, and it's exciting.
Perfect.
And just to prove that all guests on your show always overlap into everybody else's business, the county council this year approved $500,000 to house homeless veterans, and I think this program is going to be part of that help. It's really astonishing that veterans in this county, in this day and age in the United States, some of them are out on the streets, and that should never happen. The people I work for at the county council really in a tough budget year decided that this is a priority, and we're so glad to have partners like this to find that housing.
So one of the things we do is as we do a building, we'll set aside a certain number of units, partner with a service provider. We'll provide the housing for a homeless family or a homeless veteran, and bring in a service provider to provide their services and give them the wraparound support that they need. And it's a successful.
So it's an
formula.
empowerment around with housing, stabilizing housing, and then getting on with the rest of your life.
Exactly.
You said you have a list of 700 already.
Right.
That number staggers me, but how many people of senior status in this county need that kind of housing?
The need is great. Seniors make up seniors make up 10% or 12% of the population right now, and is expected to be 20% of the population by 2040. So we're going to see a huge increase.
When I'm an old,
the baby boomers are getting older, and it's going to create a huge demand for not just housing but affordable housing. And
Got a minute left.
So the need for the Bonifant is just great.
Yeah, the affordable housing is a real issue for our kids as well. I teach at a Title I school. The notion of stability in housing creates stability in education and stability in schooling. And what we find in so many of the Title I schools around the county is that kids are just literally moving from place to place to grab the best available rent as rent goes up. So affordable housing is huge, not only for seniors, but also for our youngest
So
citizens.
we're not only stabilizing, but for the kids, we have after-school programs. We've seen the GPAs of our kids go from a 2.7 now to a 3.5. So we're doing these after-school programs, intensive help, so they can compete with everyone else in the schools. And it's a win-win for the schools, not only the stability, but the kids are getting additional help as well. So it's great.
Well, I appreciate it and continue the good work. There's been a great side of winning on our first half. Looking forward to the second half, and we'll be right back after these messages with the second half of our show. And we're back. Christopher Lloyd, welcome. Congratulations, MCEA. What an important organization. What a very respected group of individuals voting you in. So you must be you're like the top teacher.
Let me just say that I'm very fortunate. I don't know if I'm the top teacher. Ask the people I work with, and they might have something different to tell you. But it's been a real honor to take the office in July, and we have about 12,700 teachers now here in Montgomery County, and there's a real emphasis and I think a real desire to look at how we close opportunity gaps for all kids here in the county. And that's tough work. It's hard work, and teaching has become an increasingly difficult field because of the needs of kids and because of, I think, a lot of external pressures that have been applied. But yet I think that you're right, the public still views teachers in a very, very favorable light. So I think that all lends to kind of where we hope to go.
Let me ask you this. I mean, you're a case in point. You're at a Title I school.
Right.
And one of the issues that comes up periodically is that as you get seniority, a lot of teachers then gravitate towards schools that are, let's just say, don't have as many challenges.
Right.
And so then we have in our poorest schools where there are challenges, some of the newer teachers.
Mm-hmm.
How do you at MCEA address that kind of challenge?
Well, we just started a couple of years ago. We had negotiated several years ago, like 5 or 6, and then had to put it on hold for funding reasons. But we negotiated a career lattice, which basically provides teachers an opportunity to apply for lead teacher status, demonstrate that. It's kind of a mini national board. And then you would receive a supplement to your salary if you're in a certain position in these high needs designated schools. And the idea is that we want to be able to recognize teachers and attract teachers to just those schools, because we think that's important. Now, I do want to say, I don't want to, because I work with a lot of folks who are in their 4th or 5th year of teaching. Some of them taught other places. Great people, and I want to make sure that that's clear, that they are really good at what they do.
Agreed.
So,
and it's just that having the best of the bright of the whatever. I mean, but it
you
sounds
need a
like
good mixture in a school, in any school. You're right.
Before we open it up, let's ask you what do you see as your mandate coming in?
Well, I think that part of what we're trying to do is distribute leadership within our organization to engage folks. I think we talked earlier about the voting within the county. I think the same thing applies within the association if we're honest with ourselves. We need to be able to engage people better in that work. And quite frankly, I think there's a lot of work around restorative justice, restorative practice, making sure that we are closing achievement gaps for all kids. That's very important to us. I think teachers, by and large, get in because it's inspirational and aspirational work. You believe you can bend the arc of history, so that's what we're about.
In this new world, what do you think it's going to take to get the best people that want to become teachers? Yeah, I know it's always been a challenge, and I've always been amazed that teaching runs in families.
Yes.
I worked for Dr. Grasmick for a couple of years as state superintendent of schools, one of
Who have
people
you
I
not
really
worked for, Greenberger?
It used to get around until they got rid of it. But that was always amazing. But I think one of the great challenges now, everything starts at the top and in front. And right now it's in front of a classroom. I really think when they're talking about the gap and everything, if we have the best people in front of the room, a lot of these gaps will close themselves.
I would agree.
How do we get them there?
I think that this is a real challenge because for a large part nationally, teaching has become attacked in many ways, and teachers have been under attack.
Education has been attacked.
So who wants to go into this? But I do think this. I think, and I say this frankly, this is the best job I've ever had. This is the best job that I think exists, and I encourage folks to really look at teaching and consider teaching and go into teaching because it is the place where you can actually bend an arc of history in a community.
So what's your role in picking out the new superintendent?
So our role, along with, we have about 14 other community partners, will be after the board looks through various applicants, they'll give that to a group of 15 folks and say, sit in on some interviews, talk with them and see. So we're of course looking for
about a minute left in your segment.
So we're looking for someone who clearly is a social justice advocate, is someone who's going to be looking at that, to engage that, and to be a good fighter for public education, and more importantly, a good fighter for Montgomery County. Because
and how are you dealing with the school board?
And I think that is this school board is making and trying to, I think, move us forward in a lot of different ways. The challenge has been for some of our members is that they feel like they could listen a little better at times, and that
Hit the nail on the head.
You know, that's an ongoing discussion. I am someone to believe as a teacher that conversation solves a lot of problems. That you actually try very hard to converse rather than conflict, and so I do a lot of conversing, trying to solve those problems.
I'll tell you real quick. One of the things I worry about is teachers not having affordable housing. And then driving from Frederick and then deciding, well, maybe I'll just teach in Frederick.
Absolutely.
And we lose good people.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, thank you very much. I'm going to shout out to my wife, Magda. She's an educator.
Oh, great.
Your words are amen. I've never seen somebody work as hard as she does for as little as what she makes, and every day is a moment of trying to help a kid move ahead in their lives. So thank you for what you do. Neil.
Well,
I see that you're wearing the colors of the football team that plays in Washington. Here, as formerly covering him, welcome.
even though I'm a Jets fan, I should be wearing green and white.
This weekend, at least, especially this weekend.
Every weekend.
So you're at the county council.
Right. I work in government and politics, and I have worked at the county council for 9 years. But I'm here to talk about today something that transcends government and politics. Myself, and Merlin Reinecke, who works here at MCM, we're co-chairs of an event that will honor Vietnam Veterans on Saturday, October 24th at the University of Shady Grove. We're part of an organization of cable TV managers in the county, and doing events and is not really what we do. And honoring people is not what we do. We run TV stations and other things. But about a year ago, we found out that our county has never done anything, and I mean anything, to recognize the Vietnam veterans of our county that fought. This is the 40th year that the war has ended. We have people in this county that were integral parts of the Vietnam War, key people, historic people, people in books, and we've never done anything to thank them. But on October 24th, we're going to do that.
Not to mention we have a county executive who's a Vietnam
Ike Leggett was a Vietnam vet in the Army.
Right.
But we also have, if many people, little that people remember the Vietnam War, the Gulf of Tonkin resolution happened. It gave Congress gave the president all powers for military involvement in Vietnam.
50 years ago.
And that happened 2 days after someone named Everett Alvarez Jr., pilot, was shot down and taken prisoner.
Right.
2 days in August 1964, two pilots were shot down. One died. Everett Alvarez lived. He became the first resident of the Hanoi Hilton.
Right.
Several other people who live in this county today. Everett lives in Potomac.
Okay.
Several other people who live in this county ended up being his neighbors at the Hanoi Hilton. Now there's neighbors in Montgomery County. They're all going to be there.
Okay.
Bob Schieffer of CBS News, who probably for a Saturday morning speech could probably get $50,000 or $75,000 on one phone call, is showing up for free.
Former host of Face the Nation.
And
before we go on, there's a website. As people are listening to you, they can go to that. What's that website?
Our event is free. All information about it can be found at www.moco, M-O-C-O, VietnamVets.org.
Okay.
And we hope people register. We expect a capacity crowd, and it's not only going to be a great day to thank veterans. I think it's going to be a great event, and people should bring their kids because they'll have a history lesson. Not that there's anything wrong with learning in school, but when you can hear from the real people who were there and tell you the story exactly the way it happened, as it was being a prisoner of war, as it being in the war, that's the best way to learn.
You know, Neil, I shared with you before, there's a picture from the Sentinel in 1967 that I was digging through one day, and it was 11 kids from Richard Montgomery who had signed up together as part of the buddy program. You sign up together and can stay through basic training together. And it was in 67. Within 6 months, several of them had died in the Tet Offensive. And we have been searching for years just to try to put the story together, these 11 kids that served together. And one of the ones that we ended up talking to had mentioned that there was nothing for Vietnam veterans, but said that by and large, the way the government treated them when they got back, we all know those stories, but locally, it was as if nothing had happened. And it amazes me that nothing has happened until then.
And many of the people that I have had the pleasure in putting the program together have been skeptical. Why are you doing this? No one's ever thanked us in 40 years. Why now? And my only answer to them is, well, we're late, but some people are going to make sure you're thanked. And there are some people that said they just can't hear more about it, and they just send their regrets. But we have a lot of people that are going to show up, and there's a lot of wounds still out there, physical, mental. We have some great speakers who are going to tell their stories. Left. And one of our speakers is going to be a Rockville attorney named Tom Murphy, who, as his story, he tells me he was on a patrol. The whole area had been bulldozed except for a tree. He was leading the patrol. Out behind the tree jumped somebody with an AK-47. He shot Tom, and Tom shot him. As Tom says, he died, I lived. And really, that's what this is about, the people who lived, and we're going to thank them on October 24th.
You still find the wounds are there.
The wounds are still there. And we're going to hear about that. And I think in the hallways that day, I think there'll be a lot of people with those wounds oozing out, and we hope that maybe there'll be a little soothing of it.
Let's hope this is the first of many celebrations.
We hope so.
And these folks. Thank you, Neil. Thank all of you for joining me today. What a great show. And thank all of you for joining us for this week's edition of Montgomery Week in Review. I'm Don Mooers, and I invite you to join us next week at this very same time.